truth is everlasting. We're here today. Got ourselves a little game update. Trying to get back into the swing of things as well, doing videos, chatting things up, talking about strategies, deck builds, and the last couple of weeks we've seen some major updates to some factions. A few weeks ago, we saw changes to the Thousand Suns, a huge overhaul to the entire faction, and today I woke up first thing this morning and there was a patch for a huge overhaul to the Salamanders, as well as a couple other cards that had been popping up, and some that needed a little something. Talking about Luthor here, really quick, for those who don't know, I'm going to put this up here right at the start so you are aware. There is going to be an alt art Luthor on sale this weekend. So if you don't have Luthor and you're thinking, well, these updates don't really apply to me, I don't have Luthor, you can get him this weekend. He'll be available. The alt art looks very nice. The card back looks very nice. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the patch updates today. Do a little bit of hyping for, hopefully things to come. We're going to be talking about getting the Warp Chatter podcast back up and running, and guests who will be on the first episode, and hopefully taking some names and open call for anybody who wants to be on future upcoming episodes too. Before I get all ahead of myself, let's go ahead and let's break down the patch update here. Let's take a look at what we have seen and what these cards do. So first off, before we get to the actual cards themselves, I think it's important to note that the survivor trait itself actually got a big change. And I say big because it changes the entire mechanic. It still works very similar, but there are a few interactions that it now works alongside, which have always kind of hindered it. So first off, sacrifice now triggers when the troop is killed during its controller's turn, regardless of whether or not it's attacking. So that means that we've got poison. If your troop dies to poison, they've been stunned by Mortarion, and they're still going to get their sacrifice. If you self-damage with cards such as one of the long-time staples, Scorched Earth, that allowed you to deal 2 damage. Now you can deal 2 damage to trigger that sacrifice. Volcanic Instability, which deals 3 damage to various units, you can use that as well to do that. So sacrifice still has to die on your turn, but it becomes basically it's a step up for survivor, but it's still a step down from backlash. Backlash was just whenever this troop dies. So Roshan squad doesn't have to die attacking. If they get poisoned, they die, you're still going to get this little sacrifice effect. Now that's not just for Salamanders though. That is for every card that has sacrifice. Salamanders is the primary faction that makes the most use of them, but a lot of people were very quick to point out, there's some wonderful chaos cultists that have got some good sacrifice abilities. Some of these ones, like one of the ones I really enjoy running is the cultist sorcerer. Getting a lesser demon, but with that 3 health, that's tricky sometimes. Your opponent doesn't mind not attacking it on their turn, and then you kill it, you die, you attack but you don't die. Well, now you can find a way to still maybe thwart them, die on your turn by not attacking, and voila. Now when I say poison is one of those methods, but there's also a couple other, they're rare but they still pay off, such as the Iron Havoc squad, right? That card that basically does additional damage after an enemy attacks. Well, guess what? It's still going to trigger that sacrifice if this triggers your survivor or if it destroys the unit. Whereas before, it might not. If you've got a card such as Sigismund Sigismund, who is basically going to do additional damage when an enemy's attack it, right? So if they attack the Warlord, he's going to deal 2 extra damage. It works kind of the same way as the Iron Havoc squad. Nemetor himself has got a way to deal 2 damage, but this is 2 damage to enemies that attack a friendly troop. So it just helps spread out the activation for sacrifice, but not just for Salamanders, for other cards as well, as I said. And there are some ones that you might think maybe they didn't need it. I don't know, but still, just the same, that's all right. So, huge overhaul to sacrifice. So, now with sacrifice, basically getting a sacrifice itself gets a patch. That changes a little bit of the shape of the Salamanders by itself, but they weren't done. They really did a full overhaul for the faction. First off, Vulcan, his ability has been changed on his core card here. He went back to the create a random teaching in your hand. That used to be his original ability, the create a Sorgar Hunter. They took that away. They took that away from the Vulcan. However, from the Vulcan Reborn, he gets a 3 attack, and then he gets his old ability. He still has that plus the Survivor 3, so there is a little bit of diversity there. Now, initially, this ability was not fantastic because teachings were not great. They weren't even anywhere on par with like Emperor's Children tactics, which up at the time of Vulcan released, Fulgrim was the most closest thing. But the teachings have been reworked. We're going to get to the teachings in just a second. Really quickly, Cash and Vaughn. Cash and Vaughn has the Twistead. The Twistead has been changed now. Instead of costing 20, it now costs 10. So you can either play it at 10 energy, if you have 10 energy and still trigger it, or you can play it for 1 energy after triggering Survivor. So it has a little bit of duality here. That is one thing that I always found when I was playing Cash and Vaughn, is basically it forced you to trigger your Survivor to get this benefit. And if you can get to 10 energy and still not have triggered your Survivor, and you've got a handful of cards of troops in your hand, this actually pays off pretty nicely. And then we've got Nemetor, which I was surprised they gave him Survivor too. I don't know why they did, quite frankly, but that's just me. I'm one of the fence who says, why did you give the one Salamander Warlord who didn't survive Istvan 5 Survivor? It doesn't make sense, but powers that be, I guess, determined that he needed to have his ability, otherwise has not changed. He just gained this passive Survivor too. So there's that. So now that's the Warlords. I think probably the biggest change is Vulcan, obviously. Nemetor is just still going to be Nemetor. He's not really going to be offensive unless you have to be, and if you're using him offensively, then you're not really using his ability, so you're going to get stuck with that. But let's get into the troops. So Chaplain Xavier got his artwork changed, which this is an awesome artwork. This is great in-house artwork. I really like it. I think there was a lot of complaints when he first released because he looked like a 40k. He actually was a 40k Astartes using 40k Mark armor, and now he gets a little bit more Artificer style. But his ability is now Resolution instead of a Rally effect. Give Survivor 1 to adjacent units, which it used to just be Rally, give Survivor 1 to adjacent troops. So adjacent units means he can give it to your Warlord. Finally, that was one thing that was always kind of a sad spot, was he didn't give Survivor to your Warlord, but now he can. In addition to that, as a sacrifice, instead of returning to your hand, he creates a random teaching in your hand. Now that's a downside, unfortunately. The resolution gets stronger. The Survivor 1 to your Warlord, that's great, especially if you can protect him behind a front line. Every turn he's going to be giving out Survivor, so you don't have to replay him. That's very nice. He still is a target. But the sacrifice create a random teaching in your hand. Again, we're getting teachings. We're going to get into these teachings here. Devotion goes up. This used to cost 1. Now it's 3, but still get the +1/+1 to your troops. Instead of 1 troop, it's all of your troops get +1/+1. But if you don't control any troops, you get 2 Sorkar Hunters in play. So if you don't have any troops, then you're getting 2 of these guys into play. That's fairly solid for 3 energy. But if you do have troops, they're all getting +1/+1. That's pretty solid. That's actually a really good improvement for a decent cost. Hope got changed. Hope was one of my favorite ones. This used to be your troops gain sacrifice, draw a card, but this is now just straight choose 1 troop from your deck and draw it. It costs 2 less. So here's a couple things. Similar cards you have seen already. You have seen supply lines, right? You have seen, oh, draw a vehicle from your deck, it costs 2 less. We've seen recently the Imperial version for the Imperial Capital, right? Draw a structure from your deck, it costs 2 less. This one here does it a little different. Number 1, it is choose 1 troop from your deck and draw it, and it costs 2 less. So not only is it a troop base, but it is specifically choosing, and it costs 2 less, and it's 3 energy, but it's faction specific, which is very cool. Guys, I was kind of hoping we were going to get one of these things for like a neutral, but that would be very powerful. Making a card like that for neutrals could be so broad. So to put it in a troop heavy faction like the Salamanders, and to make it specific to them, as well as making it a teaching that Vulcan can create on turn 1, possibly play on turn 2, that's very cool. Very cool. This is a good card. Egan Gargo remains the same. Jur Squad stays the same. Nocturne Born. Some of these cards are going to stay the same, right? Because they've got abilities that already were doing okay. They're not fantastic. We're talking about the teachings. Resilience. This card here was terrible. It was, when it came out, it didn't work right. Then they changed it and it wasn't worth playing. It was 3 energy. Now it's 4 energy. But this ability, choose a friendly starters that died this game and put it into play. Not put it in your hand. Put it in play. That is huge late game. Yes, it's expensive. I had to think about this because everything I was seeing here was cost increase. Cost increase of benevolence. Benevolence, heal 4 to a friendly unit. As sacrifice ability trigger. This used to cost 2, heal 3 to your warlord and adjacent units. Wow, trigger the sacrifice, heal 4 to a friendly unit. I can pick who it goes to. That's not bad. And then you throw on the fact that resilience is also a teaching, and choose a friendly stars that die this game, put in play. If you've got a late Forge Father to kill, 10 energy, and your opponent just hard to move to kill, and you have got a choice of 3, and you play 2 resiliences, you're getting 2 to kills, or you're getting 2 choices of 3. Maybe you won't get to kill, maybe you'll get Delore veterans, maybe you'll get Captain Asabius. It's got to be in Astartes, but you get it in play. That's huge. That's really cool. So for 4 energy, you're basically getting potentially an 8 or 9 energy troop. I like that. I like that a lot. Sorrow remains the same. That is the one teaching that has remained the same. That's fair. Storm Eagle got changed to deal 2 damage, and if target is an enemy stun it, this used to deal 2 damage and stun it. The downside of that, obviously, is if you were accidentally using it on your own, but the fact that Storm Eagle now can be used the same way you've always used it, but also as an option. You know what? Don't have, my opponent's only got 2 attack and I really want to trigger my Postulary Reston. I'm going to Storm Raven him. Boom. Attack. Deals 3. Use the Storm Raven. Triggers his Survivor. Now he's back and ready to go. And he's not stunned, so I can use him on my next turn. It becomes pretty utility. And Storm Eagle was always good, at least as a one-of. So this is a decent card. Now, if you're still looking to kind of board-wide hit, can you imagine what Scorched Earth is going to do with some of these sacrifice abilities all out if you trigger them multiple sacrifice units? It's pretty crazy. Artificer Armor. Now, Artificer Armor, it's kind of sad. It went up in cost, and it gives +4/+4 to a friendly troop. Before, this used to double the health, the current health of a troop. Instead, it gives +4/+4. I do think one of the reasons that they changed this was to make it a little bit harder to get one of the achievements, one of the secret achievements, which is end your turn with a troop with 50 health or more. That's a hard one to get. Abomination is a hard one to get, but there was a deck build that you could play with like Slayer of Worlds and then 2 Artificer Armors, and you're good to go. Now you can't do that. Now you can't do that. So I think that was why they changed it. But the reason why I say it's sad, not only is because doubling its health, I mean, like, you're getting +4 attack. At least this does something for the attack finally. I'm normally not a huge advocate of slamming the Agents of the Sigilate, but for 4 energy, here's one that gives them +3/+3, but Survivor 3. So, I don't know. I mean, you tell me which one's better. +4/+4 for 5? Or +3/+3 with Survivor 3 for 4? Yes, there's a difference in rarity, and yes, it's not a faction, but that part kind of gripes me a little bit. The lore veterans, these guys were 5-4, now they're, or 5-3, now they're a 5-4, so they got their stats changed a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. That's fair. Orbital, I'm just going down the list here. Orbital combat was lowered to 1 cost instead of 2. Still has the same ability. I like that. That's energy efficient for a faction that's had other cards go up in cost. It's nice to have their cards go down in cost. What else do we have here? We had I'm just scrolling through the whole gamut, going down from one card to the next. And I think the next one to get changed was Ancient Daggler. This guy here, he's got now. He still has the resolution gains Survivor 2, but his sacrifices no longer gain +2 attack. This is just straight deal 4 damage to a random enemy. That is cool. So like he sacrifices and something is getting hit for an extra 4. Then he can do that again on the next turn. That just makes his value even better. Very nice. Very nice. Daggler wasn't great on release, but after he was patched the first time, he got good. This patch makes him much better. Ancient Savior. This I have in my card by card for Salamanders. I talked about how terrible this dreadnought was in comparison to anything really. Dackler or any other dreadnought or any card for cost 8. It still is, I mean, 8/7 for 8. That's great. It has Survivor 3. And it's no longer conditional. It used to have like a conditional if your opponent has more troops, this has more attack. Now this is just sacrifice, deal 4 damage to all other units. All other units. Now that's very important to note because that includes your units, which means Xavier could slam into something, blow himself up, blow up everybody else, and trigger all of your other sacrifices simultaneously. Not, or at least like 1 or 2 of them. That's really cool. The potential to get crazy with Xavier is very cool. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying him out. I don't know how it's gonna work. I don't know how it's going to work just yet. I think there'll be some supply lines or whatnot, and obviously a bunch of sacrifice abilities. But if you can get a Xavier to attack and die, and then you get a whole bunch of other things to trigger, like healing and dealing 4 damage, Savius giving ++2/+2, that can get out of hand very fast. And then last, Forge Father to Kill. He's still got Survivor 5, but his ability has been changed to choose a tactic from your deck and draw it again. That's nice instead of just drawing a card if it's a tactic 0. There was a 1-turn kill type Mimi deck that really kind of abused his ability, so it gets toned down a little. However, this is still a very powerful ability, especially if you are using this to get key tactics to follow up with on your next turn, the teachings or anything like that. It's not lowering the cost of them at all. It's not lowering the cost of them at all, but it is going to get you a tactic that you're going to need for a couple energy. Maybe 4 energy, you get 2 tactics, and then you can still attack with this guy, which is great. So regardless of how many tactics you decide to draw, you're still going to be able to attack with this 8/8. I think that is it for the for the Salamander changes, and that is really impressive. But they weren't done. We got a couple of other minor tweaks to some existing stuff. I talked about Luthor. Luthor is getting his alt art this weekend, as I said, but he got a buff in form of the Arch Betrayer. That is, it's not a Whispers of Chaos. It is not a Reckoning. It is simply him betraying. He becomes the Arch Betrayer. -2 cost when you put him play with Troop of Duplicitous. Next to Rogaldorn's Reckoning, this is the most expensive Reckoning in the game, but it is far easier to get currently. This thing is -2 cost when you put a troop in play with Duplicitous. That includes if they are put in play with cards such as Caliban's Heart. So this 8 energy tactic drops your Reckoning cost by 10 very quickly. And given how common and how easy it is to put in troops that have Duplicitous or put in multiple troops that have Duplicitous, yeah, he's going to get his Arch Betrayer off. It's going to happen. He's going to betray the Lion. And then when he does, he gets 3 attack, which I like. I like that. Even though he's not an Astartes or a Primarch, he's going to go up in attack. And then he's got this crazy ability. This is just one of the best abilities out there. Just take control of damage enemy troop. He ramps up Irresistible Charisma and removes the conditional end of this turn. And he just gets that troop. The only thing is they have to be damaged. That's not hard to do when you have a bunch of little Jaegers pinging for 1. As long as it doesn't have ward, he's going to steal it. He's going to whisper in its ear and it's going to join his side. That is really cool. That is really cool. I only got 0 wins? I've played... What? Oh, it's the Arch Betrayer. I've only played a couple games with him so far. Yeah, 1-on-1. So I guess I've only played 1 game with him so far, and it was pretty fun. I don't know how long it'll stay this way, but we got that. They also went back to the Thousand Suns, and they realized that some stuff that they did with the Thousand Suns really kind of hampered them. So the warlords all start with 1 additional psyker in the pool. That's a one-time thing to kind of make up for the fact that they are all now psyker 1. So at least turn 1, they can use their ability if they need to. Magnus had his ability changed to deal 1 to 3 damage. Quite frankly, if you ask me, I don't think that makes any of it better with what that does. I didn't really get a chance to talk about the Thousand Suns patch because I was busy moving when it happened. I've played with them, and they're different. They play fun in a different way, but the reliance on cards like this, Astral Warfare, that those days are gone, and that's okay. I am fine with that. I just think that some of the cards in here at this point, like the best cards, are really like Quick Blood. That's a huge improvement. City of Light. Why play City of Light when Flesh Change for 1 energy basically gives you 6 turns of having City of Light that you have to pay for 3 and then wait those 6 turns. I think Flesh Change is a superior card at this point. Kind of backtracking on myself to talk about that, but I don't think the change is going to be huge. I don't think it's going to make a swing. A lot of people have kind of made up their minds and aren't playing the Thousand Suns anymore, which is a little bit of a shame, but at the same time, it doesn't surprise me. They're not powerful, and people want to play powerful stuff. So, speaking of powerful stuff, let's talk about the 2 Chaos cards that got tweaked here. First off, Khazdrag, which is a pain in many a thorn's side. He's been lowered. His health is now a 4-5 as opposed to a 4-6, but this guy is still a game winner. Great card. I love the artwork. I do not enjoy when he goes off on the other side of my board, but when I play him and he goes off, it's really fun. He's a lesser demon, so you can generate him with those Chaos Sorcerers. When another troop dies, that includes your troops or theirs. Gives +1/+1 to all your troops. And he still has 5 health. He doesn't have 6, so he's a little bit easier to remove, but he's not perfect. and Corn's Favor. This is not really a fix. This costs 6, that give your Warlord +4/+0. Now it costs 5, and it gives your Warlord +3/+0. Which actually, a lot of people have said, and I agree, it makes the problem with Corn's Favor and Karn that much harder, because you've got a Warlord who can play it now a turn earlier, um, at 5 energy, potentially bursting out for 12 damage, potentially. Throw in 13 if he's got the counterattack. That's really high. The problem with this card, when they did the special Blood for the Blood God or Skulls for the Skull Throne raid event, we all knew it was ugly, and it's still ugly. So I hope we see a slight alteration to this card one more time in the future, but I think it's going to be a little bit. Also, just as a quick shout out, one thing that they did do that I have been advocating for even in my absence was new deck slots. We got a whole row of deck slots, which I was very quick to point out is still 2 rows shy of what we need to have. Up until today, I did not have a Camba Diaz deck. I just have my Roldorn sitting here, and that was where my decks ended. As of today, I now have a row of sisters, and I can create one deck for Iota, but that's it. We're still, there is not enough deck slots in the game for every Warlord. We need an additional row or 2 to make room for the Agents of the Sigilate faction, as well as any neutral Warlords that we're going to get. But I do appreciate that this is a step in the right direction. I'm glad I can finally make room to throw out all of the sisters here. Up on release, some of the deck videos I did, I think I just had like 1 slot I was juggling. Feels nice. I got some room to breathe. It's not full because all of these Warlords here from these 3. You might say, oh, that's just 3 Warlords. Well, that's just 3 Warlords now. Typically, we usually get about 2, maybe 3 neutral Warlords added to the game before the next expansion, which I anticipate is going to be late October, early November. We'll get a raid event. We'll probably get a couple neutral Warlords, and then we'll start seeing more Warlords added with the expansion, whatever it may be. So those are the game updates. Those are the patches that have taken place today. I am eager and excited to get cracking to them, to try out playing them, and get back to making some videos, do some deck lists for some of these new tweaks to the Warlords. I don't want to jump on the train, but I've been waiting to play Luthor for a very long time since I got him, and honestly, I had a lot more fun playing Astalin and Zahario. But now that he's got a different end game, I'm gonna be giving him a go. And as far as the Salamanders go, I'll play Vulcan and Vaughn. Probably still gonna pass on Nemetor, but I really want to try out those teachings. I really want to try out some ideas I've got for late game decks. So yeah, so I'm excited. I'm excited. I hope you are too. I hope that these updates inspire you. I understand if not all of them do, and it doesn't fix all the problems that you might encounter. I'm certainly not happy with the Corn's Favor tweak, but if that is one thing out of all the other cards that they fixed that I have to complain about, then I'll stick with it. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please think about doing that. Let me know if you are interested in being a guest in the Warp Chatter podcast, of getting that back on track here. Now that we're getting settled, the Eye of Terror Studios will be resuming its recording duties and bringing you content digitally on the podcast platforms. So you can kind of listen to some 40K, 30K, lore, nerd talk, talking about the game, cards, decks, community events, little bits about why we like somebody, we don't like the other people, why we like Lionel Johnson and we don't like Luthor, or vice versa. why we think Magnus did nothing wrong, or vice versa. Um, and sometimes there's those odd things in between too. If we're talking about the players that guested on there, what games that they play, how they got into the game, it's always kind of neat. So if you'd like to be part of that and you are on the Discord community, hit me up, send me a PM. I'm adding new names to the roster or the schedule, and I'd like to hear from everybody. It's kind of an open call. It doesn't matter if you're a top 50 player or a new player. It doesn't matter if you haven't played anything but events or practice. If you play the game and you enjoy 40K, you enjoy Horus Heresy, I'd like to talk with you and hear what you have to say, and hopefully get some more stories to the names of the players that are out there. So that's it for me, guys. I appreciate you for tuning in. I appreciate for everybody who's been waiting for me to do stuff and come back, and hopefully be getting more stuff out to you on a regular basis once again. So that's it for me. Until next time, keep playing Legions, and we'll talk to you later.